Builder's Paradise is offering a large variety of floor and wall tiles at very competitive prices. Builder's Paradise has over 2 million pieces in stock, lots of different styles to choose from. Whether you're renovating or tiling a new house, Builder's Paradise has what you need. Wow! Oh, and remember, we're open all day Saturday to serve you better. This is something that you can't refuse. Visit Builder's Paradise today at the C.A. Paul Southwell Industrial Site in St. Kitts or call them at 466-4938.
Good evening and welcome to another episode of Talk That Get Results. I'm Reverend HERBERT, and as per usual we are here every Tuesday evening with something that at least we think is of community interest and or of some concern. And if you think that you have something which fits into that category, you'd like to find out how you can be a part of the program, well, why don't you drop us a line, address it to Let's Talk program in care of Vaughan Radio, P.O. Box 195, Charlestown in Nevis. Give us a call. Our numbers are 1-869-469-1616 and 01700. By the way, those will be the numbers you'll use to be a part of this evening's discussion. Again, thank you all very much for joining us. This is your voice in the community, Talk That Get Results. With regard to your participation in the show, we encourage you to call in on the numbers listed 1-869-469-1616 and or 1700. Here's a suggestion. You have a question or comment, perhaps you can get a pencil, piece of paper, write it down so that you're well organized, and when you're getting on the show you take as little time as possible so we can take as many of you as we can. We ask only, first of all, you respect yourselves and then respect others, because we will not accept anything we deem that's not within our broadcast standards, but we encourage you to always be forceful with your point. Also, you can follow our video stream live of this program on our Facebook page at Vaughan Radio and our YouTube channel Vaughan Radio. Click subscribe. Tonight, Conrad Libert, good evening.
Staff here at Vaughan Radio, and to my colleague, good evening, as we gather once again in the name of the Lord to discuss issues affecting the people, whether it be social, political, personal, or otherwise. It's an important gesture for us to come here to elucidate on issues, I suppose, and at the same time be enlightened by the general public. Remember, we have no monopoly on ideas or knowledge, and so the interaction is very important with the public. Well, I'm happy to be here. I want to hail up my friends in Connecticut, Mr. Osborne Libert, my friends in Toronto. A special good evening to Kingo Jr. Herbert, who happens to be on island at the moment, a good friend of mine and ardent listener to this program. I'm happy to be here once again, and I'm looking forward to a healthy discussion this evening, WEBBO. Thank you once again. Thank you to your staff for inviting me, and I just want to say thank you to the general public who have invited us into the homes for so many years on a Tuesday night, and without your participation, without your interest, I suppose the show would not have reached the heights which everyone knows that it has reached over 30-something years. I want to once again pay homage to Edric W. Stanley. He's been laid to rest today, and my condolences once again to his entire family and friends. WEBBO, thank you for having me on this program this evening. Thank you.
Roger Fifield, good evening.
Good evening, WEBBO, and good evening to my fellow panelists, Nayat. Good evening to the listening and viewing audience, wherever you are, near and far. We say special good evening to you. I, too, would like to send out condolences to the family members, the children and extended family of Stanley. He was laid to rest today, and he got a wonderful send-off. Persons were out in their numbers, and I think the service itself was a wonderful service to WEBBO. But I suppose that we could probably go back to that a little later in the program. WEBBO, I want to make an appeal again, as I made last week Tuesday, on this very program, in that I'm asking persons in the Zion, New River, Hickman's, Harris's area, and ideas on the island of Nevis to come on out down to the bottom of Zion by the bus stop. We would have started to erect what I term as the Christmas theme park, the Christmas tree, and we know that it's a sizable theme park and it's lots of work, so we're asking persons to come out and to assist us in getting it done. WEBBO, thank you once again for inviting me to this widely listened program. I hope that you, the listening audience, would be able to participate by calling the numbers that were listed earlier on by our host, HERBERT. And of course, I am looking forward to a fruitful discussion. Callers, once again, we are hoping that you would participate. As I always say that, this program is one that we can learn from you, and of course, you can learn something from us here as panelists. Once again, WEBBO, thank you very much for inviting me once again.
So I want to make a comment basically on the funeral. I think it was a nice service, right? And I heard quite a bit about Edric that I did not know, as I said, I met him 30-something years ago, and of course there would have been a lot of life before that. But some of the things that we heard in him growing up and stuff like that, you realize that I always said people don't change, they just improve on what or who they are. And that's why I'm always fascinated to know persons when they were small. I don't know if any of you realize, or when you were growing up, you'd always used to have pick some people. We call them pick some people. And I use this example all the time that, well, when we were growing up anyway, people in my era, we didn't have no phone and TV and things sometimes to occupy our time, so we used to picnic and so on, go on the beach, swim a lot and stuff like that, and build castles in the sand. Anybody ever did that?
Yes,
Of course.
And so every now and then a bad man will come and kick down your castle in the sand. At least mine. It's a long time people taking advantage of me, And what I will do, I will just move a little further up the bay and figure, well, me in trouble, this guy. And then he will come up the bay and he will kick it down again. So what I'm making the point is, follow those people when they come big. They do the same thing. They mightn't kick down the castle, but they're going to interfere with everybody. And one of the things that I found out, a lot of people who like to interfere with people, they can't take it, when you hit them back, or when you do what you have to do. They run up and down and ball and send all kind of people, to when you really put some pressure on. The second thing I notice about those group of people, they're always cussing other people, and they just be the least to talk. You all know that term?
Yeah.
The least to talk, but they're always cussing people. What we heard about Edric, and when I got to know him, and even on this program, he's always encouraging people to walk. There's always something you can find to do. And what we learned today is that those days things were rough. So Lindbergh did a beautiful job with his part of the eulogy as well, Lindbergh. And he said that Edric had to go and live with another family, a well-to-do off lady, a rich lady. And as often happens, he was the one who doing the bulk of the work. But he understood as a boy that you got to stick with it. Sometimes it's not going to be the way you want it to be. So you got to work with it until you can do better. And they outlined how at the age of 13 and 14 and he made certain moves and stuff like that. And that is why I understand. And that is why he was able to be giving people these suggestions, advice, and encouragement. Right? And the part when they were talking about him doing the shop, his grocery store and stuff like that. And he was shot twice. And Edric don't trouble people. And the kind of, unfortunately, system we have, justice and all that and stuff like that, nobody knows. And so that's part of what really got me today. And then when he went St. Croix, because he's always talking about when he was in another jurisdiction, and he spoke here about when he went to work at a hotel. Ain't no thing about that, but he was the star of the show, just being courteous, just being polite. And they said how he used to get some good tips and stuff like that and so on. So it's a way of encouraging people. The other thing I'd like to say is that, which I said today, for those of you who weren't at the end, didn't hear, and I said it before. Now, when we started this talk show, it wasn't easy to find people to sit on the panel and to talk and stuff like that, because it still is that way at some point. Some people think the only person who's supposed to say certain things is them. And so it wasn't easy to come and talk about politics in particular. And so we were oppressed and persecuted a lot. And I said today, which Edric has said here many times before, it's on the record, that one of the things that stand out to me, and we are a people like that, some of us don't have the courage to say it aloud. So Edric will tell me how people will come by his shop and discourage him from participating. Boy, study with WEBBO this, and all that happened is, it was their strategy. So if Edric don't come and Ted don't come, maybe you don't have no show. And they kill it, so to speak. But the fascinating part about that, Cedric told me, he not only told me what they would say, he told me who they are. But I'm a man who grew up with the Bible, and it's not every truth to be known. So I know who they are, and all I do is smile, because they don't know that I know. So I want to encourage people that when you're doing something, you get all these sort of things. So we didn't have it easy, and the discouragement and depression and so on came from all and sundry, high and low. But Edric and Ted, we soldiered on. And in mentioning that, it's like certain chapters, I don't want the other guys who came after feel that I'm not, because we're a team, and I always say we're such a powerful team. Even when the captain and vice captain in there, we still win the games, because everybody step up, right? So I want to encourage people that when you're doing something, no matter what form or shape the discouragement come, if you believe in what you're doing, if what you're doing is fair, keep pushing through. I've done a couple of things, and when I start out, I know the discouragement is going to be there, so I will give them a little advice at the beginning. I say, by the way, this thing will be done, regardless of what you do. And that's one of the things that Edric always does. Always positive, always encouraging. And a lot of folks, multitude of folks, told me that they're going to miss the debate. The thing I like about him too, Naya, is that first of all, he never loses a debate. But no matter how hard you punch him, he's back.
He's back.
And he don't hold no grudges. What people don't know, if you, Edric, think that you're ahead of him on a point, Edric will call him in the next morning. A week or two later, listen, you had said so and so about so I thank those guys, to have soldiered on in those very, very rough times. It's still rough, And the other last important point I want to make is how they kept the content at a certain level. I wasn't going to accept anything else anyway. I remember one night a lady calls in, and she has a back and forth with Ted, and I listened carefully, and it had nothing to do with the topic, nothing to do with the show. So I asked the lady, so Mr. Hobson? She said, yeah, of course you know. You know where his office is? Tell me, yeah. I said, well, okay. Finish the conversation tomorrow morning up by his office. Of course, I asked Ted if she came. He said no. So in other words, you want to cuss Ted, but you ain't going to use me for that. And I offer no apology for things like that. And that's why I'm glad they have YouTube and Facebook and a lot of other media and stuff like that. So you don't have to, you know what I'm saying? We have certain content, we're trying to, that's my lot for now. A little later on, I think I want to say more about Edric, but Naya, Five for you?
WEBBO, I was fortunate to attend the funeral earlier, WEBBO, and certain things that was said in the eulogy. I tried to listen keenly, and you can see Stanley was a man, who loved his family. That came out clear, politically clear at the funeral. And he just didn't love his family. He showed it in action. He tried to what we call in local parlance, send back for his family, to bring them, take them to a place at that time, the U.S. Virgin Islands, that I suppose what was more buoyant and the economy was better than here, so they can get a better life, and he was hard working, as you said, as it came out in the eulogy. He worked many places. He worked in a hotel. He was a bartender and many more. And he tell stories, and because of the content, I suspect, and the way he put over his stories, that caused him to get lots of tips and big tips, and to the fact that guests thought that he was somewhat like Sydney Poynting, the movie star, so and he went on from one job to a next, trying to lift himself up and stuff like that. And it shows that through hard work and perseverance, one can reach to heights, and that came out. I know on this program number of times Stanley would have said that he was a pilot, and that also came out, and he was actually a licensed pilot, so maybe when some of us thought that he was just saying it or making joke, that actually came out, so I think that he was they spoke about his cricketing exploits and stuff like that, so he was really an all-rounder, and it's not that I didn't believe before, but so many things that Stanley would have said and this program before, in terms of things that he would have done and stuff like that. Sometimes it's almost seems unbelievable for one man to do so many things in such a short lifespan, but Stanley was able to do a multitude of things, so many things in his short 78 years old, and Stanley is one that I believe that any young person would want to emulate. When they eulogized him, they went back to his childhood, how he had to live with another family, and how he had to work hard, and so he knew what it meant to work hard, to work himself up the ladder from a very tender age, and I believe hearing that story today, I believe that any young person who would have heard that story, or who didn't hear that story, they could probably go back on YouTube and listen it, and I believe that they would find some sort of inspiration in Stanley's life story, a story that would take you from ground zero right up and onwards. So I believe if you didn't hear it, I believe that you should search for it on YouTube, and and I think if we could do some of the things that Stanley did in his lifetime, if most of us can do some of the things, not particularly exact things, but some of the way he went about doing certain things, I believe that this society can be a better society. There's so many things that I can say that came out. I listened to his son. I think it's Derek Liber, the name is. I think he's the firstborn, and it was the eulogy was done in 3 parts. And he did the last portion. He spoke more to Stanley's children and the close family aspect of it. And Stanley was a proud dad, a proud man. He supported his children. He show off, when his children would have done great things. I think one of them was I don't remember the name, but some international teen, Jackson something, might have the name wrong, and they spoke of, he had that picture hang, and I think that picture also is in the booklet also, and of his son, his sons, and the accomplishments, his daughters and the accomplishment, and I believe that, Stanley was a man amongst men. He lived, a fruitful life, a life that, as I said earlier on, that anyone could emulate, any one of us, if we really want to reach, a particular stage in our lives, WEBBO.
Good. I think Stanley was a very good example. I think, like many people during that era of his, youthful days, was seeking opportunity. I think many people endure surroundings which basically reflects poverty, but I don't think Stanley had an impoverished mind. I think Stanley was bent on doing good things, was bent on going somewhere. He had that thing about him that he will not settle for less. I think he was absolutely a good example. From his childhood days, as WEBBO said, people don't really change. He worked hard, and down to the very last. I mean, just recently he just be coming to the studio and he's just lamenting about work. He's doing so much work, and he encourages everyone to find work or make work. As I said before, you can't tell Stanley about unemployment and them kind of things. He seems to have realized his responsibility at a very young age. Caring for his mom, looking out for his siblings, exposing them to greater opportunities by, pulling them along with him to St. Croix. Stanley is a good example, full of optimism and supported by hard work, and his willingness to take that chance was always present. I think he would have done well in almost any occupation, and he handled quite a bit. I mean, when we were told that he was a hotel worker, I could see him in that role. I can see him performing that role in an almost perfect way. He was almost like a kind of actor, and that role requires at times that type of personality, which I think Stanley could have really fit into pretty well. Not a clown, but that type of jolly-fated person, and playing that role as a bartender, I can see him doing well in that. But then I think there's a very serious side with Stanley, and I think that comes out when he always talk about hard work. I think what came out to that, he wanted all his children to have white-collar jobs, and you can see by the way he always carry himself, because he said this to me, that he knows mechanic, he's a mechanic, but he don't like his clothes to be dirty. And so he carried himself in such ways, and I believe he wanted all his kids, because that's what came out today. But he also recognizes the skill of and intelligence of one of his sons, and that son made him proud when he finishes the electrical outfit at the Malcolm Gishard Park. And so, to me, as I said before, he was a good example. A good example. Most important to me is, sometimes living in an environment where there is poverty, you tend to adapt to that sort of existence. Stanley seems to be, or he was not a person who was settled for an impoverished life. He was very ambitious, and I think that is what affects many people. And I often said to a lot of people that, look, man, don't have an impoverished mind. You must strive to better your condition and ask God to put you in a position that you can help others. And I think Stanley was able to do that. And I think what I've heard since he have passed, even in his much older stage in life, he was very generous, and he keep it very quiet to himself. I think on his return here, he was not perceived in a good way, because I can remember him saying, I am a farm, and no one's going to make me feel otherwise. And I think he came back here and done some important things to the community in the area of politics, in the area of business, and he was very boastful about the prices he had at his supermarket. And I cannot help saying over and over again that the man was a good example, even though some might have seen him as very tight at times. As I said, I had dealings with him before in performing works for him, and in my mind back then, I thought he was very difficult, because I made a tank for him, and he's telling me I got to come up by him and test the tank before I get paid. And I said to him, well, Stanley, if you had ordered a tank from Florida, would you ask the company to come to me and test the tank? And Stanley wouldn't give in on it.
Could I answer on behalf of Stanley?
Yes.
That's why he didn't buy it from Florida.
I suppose.
Okay.
And really, the tank is still there. And the tank was made because he wanted to save the fuel, because he thought the prices of fuel would have gone up during the Gulf War. And that was somewhere around 1991. And the tank is still there. That cylindrical tank you see above there, that kind of brown looking tank. And so we had a bit of a rough edge over that. But I must say wholeheartedly that the man was and is a good example. If you can listen to Stanley in terms of his financial advice, and you tend to follow most of his advice, you can find yourself somewhere in a much better place as you grow older. I think in every way, his ways as he relates to the public, and the advice he gives, and the many jobs he had, and his hard-working ways, must be emulated. He's a strong believer in God, and every time I contemplate that he was shot twice, I just have to shake my head. I just have to shake my head, because it's like so strong. The guy was a very strong-minded person. Get back up and go back to work, and very good example to follow, very good example to emulate. In St. Christ, he got into the truck business in partnership with my uncle, Orville Lefko Library. And that means he wasn't just on about himself doing it. If he can't do it himself, he had that idea that we probably can do it together. He was a proud Nivision and wanted to make a mark in St. Christ. And he did make a mark in St. Christ. He got into politics,
Yes.
you know. And I was told if he did continue that journey, he would have gotten somewhere. But I don't know why he did not.
But I told him here once that I feel that if he runs now, you remember that he,
you know. So what a good example. What a strong personality. You know, a real Nivision giant, home and abroad. And he believes in his ideas. He promulgates them with great vehemence. You know, you just cannot, you know, get him off. What he believes is right, what he perceives is right. And as WEBBO said, he would hold it in his heart until he see you again and restart the conversation just to make a mark on your mind that he is right. A good person, and I think that's what came out today. A great example, a strong Nivision, a godly person, and strong love for his family, his kids, very proud about his kids. And he was successful. And so I think you can ask for more as a person who came on stage and performed absolutely well. Absolutely well.
so Stanley told you he was a mechanic,
Yeah.
and you believe him?
Well, yeah, he used to fix truck and so forth, he say. Yeah. I believe him. Because he hired a guy to cut some bushes. Yeah. And somehow we thought the guy didn't do a good job. And he went and cut the bushes, or attempt to cut the bushes, and he fell down. That's just to show you that he would attempt to do anything.
So he,
If he thinks, if it's not done properly, he will attempt to do it. If it's not within his scope, maybe his financial scope in terms of what he may be charged, he will attempt to do it. Stanley built his buildings. Stanley is a contractor.
so when
That
I,
building, which is very close to the gas station, that first building, Stanley built it.
so when I
I did
said,
the railing on it, yeah.
so when I said today after we played the clip from him, that if he were live, I'll ask him if he's a preacher too, what do you think he would have said?
Yes.
Of course.
Yes.
Of course. He was a believer, and he expressed that all the time here on Von Radio, sitting next to him. Sometimes tell me about the Holy Spirit and all that. And good person, man, at the end of the day. We all have our little flaws sometimes. But I admire the fact that he comes from a surroundings of poverty, because needless people wasn't really in a general sense. He's been through what he's been through, had to live in another home and being exploited. But I don't think his mind was one of an impoverished kind at all.
But that's what you have to do with experiences, you know, learn from it. That is what helps you grow. A lot of people don't understand that this animosity and jealousy that we carry all the time, instead of maybe trying and do something yourself, you spend all the time on Facebook or somebody else, cutting somebody else in them kind of foolishness,
Yeah.
right? Instead, you go find something to do and improve yourself. You're worrying about Naya, right?
Good example.
So you know that's what he basically preached, and you can see as you listen his life story today, you can understand why he lived it.
Good example.
And I think that people say Stanley was loaded. But they don't tell you how he got loaded. They just get upset because he's loaded. And you just mentioned how they said today how hard he worked. Maybe this is a light moment. Maybe when people tell him he's loaded and stuff like that, if I had to suggest to him what he should tell them, say, but that's good because you didn't say I steal it.
But I don't know. People always think people loaded and things. How do they know or what? Sometimes that's supposed to be the last things people start thinking about. I mean, you see a man been working a lot, and what do you know about people?
I
sometimes?
don't mind they said that they're loaded. What bothers me is they're upset about it. That's what bothers me. Oh, Naya is loaded. Naya is always working, he's loaded. And you're upset about it?
That's what people will do.
And you notice now when they say it with a passion.
Yeah.
Oh, he got money, he loaded. The man's been working for it. If you're saying that he thief everybody thing and stuff like that, that's a different story. But a man like Stanley, you make a noise that he's loaded. You should be saying it with a jovial spirit.
Yeah.
Look how the Lord bless him.
And not just that WEBBO, but try to emulate him to figure out what he did and, to follow suit, to be loaded, so to speak, too.
Yeah, but there's only one problem. There's the work part of it,
Yeah.
That is the problem.
Everybody want to be loaded.
Yeah, but they don't want to put in the work.
Put in the time.
They won't put in the work. So, good example. And the beautiful thing about it in my mind is that he lived it and he had an opportunity here. He likes to say from the microphones of One Radio.
Yes.
And Stanley believes that this thing was so powerful. Sometimes he would send a message to Trump or somebody, right from the
Yeah.
Putin,
everybody.
Yeah.
On the microphone, maybe.
As I say, Trump, we all know that, he was a real strong supporter of the Republican Party in America. And I think he came out in the eulogy today that he ran for the Senate in the Virgin Islands. He was unsuccessful, but what I learned, WEBBO, not in the eulogy today, but he actually, I think I might have heard him say it before too, that he would have sat in the White House, with President Reagan, and maybe that's why he had a passion for the Republican Party, WEBBO. And I believe too, well, not believe, I know because I knew him to a certain extent, he loved people. I think that he wanted really to be a servant of the people. He wanted to serve his people. He tried his hand at politics in the U.S. Virgin Islands. He came back here and he did the same. And I believe that he did it not for some dubious reasons, but I believe that he did it because he loved people. He wanted genuinely to help people, to assist people, to pull them up in life, so to speak. That is what I believe. Hence, one of the many reasons I believe that he ran back when he ran politics. WEBBO. I think that he was a genuine man. People, I think, as Naya alluded to, probably misread him. And didn't understand exactly the type of person. I believe, WEBBO, you probably hinted at it earlier too. Had people known what they know now of Stanley would have been on the government benches in navies. If not on the government benches, certainly in Parliament, WEBBO. That's my my belief.
So when I put that to him, why did he passionately tell me he not going back in, or
He loved the private sector. He keeps saying that, and I think he want to flex. Maybe a government position might have pin him down a bit. The kind of person he is, I think he wants to make money where money is to be made.
I don't know if I'll agree with that. See, politics is a funny thing, The other day, Eric, right? I think it was yesterday. Last week, Eric was here. Remember that?
Yeah.
Last week Tuesday.
And they were talking about the Empire Sports Club and how much work he did. He's been the president of for 20 years. And he said that after he got elected, people told him that he's a minister, and now he shouldn't be doing certain things and stuff like that. And I said to him last week, one of the things that I had suggested to Eric, because they wanted him to stop dancing, and I told him, don't stop, right? Continue dancing, because everybody now dancing, even Trump, right? Now,
Trump dancing, boy.
that was the light moment part of it. What I didn't tell Eric, but I told him yesterday, because they had a little function for the seniors, and I want to say good night to those seniors in Hanley's Road, because they always come here when Eric, the Empire Sports Club, they're having their Christmas time. He takes them out and stuff like that, and they would come here and send out their greetings and stuff like that. So we hear the staff, we get to know them as well. So we always look forward to that until COVID, had started intervene. And so he gave us a little award too, the club, for our participation, and so we went up there to collect it. So they asked me to say something, and then they mentioned again about how people were telling him that he should stop doing these things. And I gave him the real reason now, not the light moment part of it, of why I tell him don't study them. So I told him yesterday, in case you missed it or you didn't realize, those people who are telling you must stop, take care of the seniors, stop with this community stuff and so on, because you're a minister now, they want you to lose. Because they realize that's how you got there. Because not so much that you wanted a job, you're a politician and stuff like that, right? Be careful when you see people who don't like you giving you advice, right? So the day he stopped doing that, he will not be where he is.
One of the first thing when they're going to say, WEBBO, you could just hear it, what he think you play now.
Yeah.
That's one of the first things people would say.
Right. So those people who are telling him do that, they got a sinister reason, which they weren't going to give him. Right? And you want some evidence of what I'm saying? Look at all those who stopped doing. See what happened with Eric, right? And I know Eric, because Eric been here with us from early. Eric did not start to do things in the community because he was planning to run.
Sure.
Right? I am not saying who did or does that, because I'm not in that. I'm talking about Eric and the trick they were trying to work on him. So Eric was doing all these things, and Eric wasn't interested in, them kind of things and stuff like that. But I tell him, no, we working with you. So all this foolishness that he must stop dance. Keep dancing. As a matter of fact, Maybe if I remember tomorrow, I drop this song for him. They have a song, I Hope You Dance. So, you know, I want to again congratulate the folks there in, you know, Hanley's Road and stuff like that in the community and doing this. And I always used to tell people that there's a lot more to life than politics. You know, every minute they're cussing. There's a lot more to. I'm not saying people mustn't get engaged in those things, right? But don't let people outsmart you. When I remember years ago, I used to tell on this show, on my early morning show, I used to encourage us, don't teach the children to hate. He had one fellow who used to go in the newspaper and on the internet and cuss me every week. Don't teach the children to hate.
Webbo, if I may, Webbo, you know, as you say, don't teach the children to hate. You know, I am one who believe that it takes the village to raise a child. And we know back in the day when persons my age and older were growing up, you know, the community, the village had a positive hand, so to speak, you know, in the raising of children. You could not pass, you know, a youngster without, sorry, a youngster could not have passed, you know, an older person without saying good morning or good afternoon and stuff like that. Even if that youngster parents didn't talk to that particular.
So it doesn't happen now?
It seldom happens. I don't think.
And why doesn't it happen now, or why does it only happen now? You know, sparingly now.
Well, Webbo is how we think. I believe that, you know, we as
whom?
Parents. We as parents.
But is all the parents say the same thing that you say?
But Webbo, I believe the difference is that some of us parents, we are afraid to discipline our children because we want.
Roger, here's the point. You notice I'm getting aggressive with you now because I'm tired of hearing this thing. Because everybody says the same thing. And how many times I've asked the rhetorical question: if everybody is right, then who is wrong? If everybody is saying that the children they must do this and do that and stuff like that, well, who is telling them to do the contrary?
Well, that's the question, Webbo. You know, that's the question, because nobody gonna look in the mirror and face it up and say, look, I'm a parent and I am wrong. I'm a parent and I need to give better instructions to my children.
So we have an unsolvable problem then?
I wouldn't say that it's.
But you said nobody's going to accept.
Okay, let me rephrase that. People do not want to accept. You know, and Webbo, this goes back, and I must say kudos to you, Webbo. When I listen to your program, especially when you have those giveaway the playground, one of the questions you would ask, you know, if they are a certain age or under a certain age, and once they are under a certain age, I really like it. The way they answer, they should answer. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir, and stuff like that. You know, I believe this is part and parcel of helping, you know, the children, you know, to be mannersly and to be, you know, to get that instilling them from that age. And I must say kudos to you and Von Radio for helping.
It come at a cost, right? So let me give you a light moment for that, right? With that. So one day, I'm walking through TDC in Charlestown. You all remember he had a place named Island Hopper?
Yes.
Right. So I'm walking through there, and somebody said, "Let me get a break. Let me get a break."
Builders Paradise is offering a large variety of floor and wall tiles at very competitive prices. Builders Paradise has over 2 million pieces in stock, lots of different styles to choose from. Whether you're renovating or tiling a new house, Builders Paradise has what you need. Wow! Oh, and remember, we're open all day Saturday to serve you better. This is something that you can't refuse. Visit Builders Paradise today at the C.A. Paul Southwell Industrial Site in St. Kitts or call them at 466-4938.
With all the power from the tower, this is the powerhouse of the Eastern Caribbean, VON Radio, from the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis.
Back on this episode of Talk That Get Results. Conrad Nile Liburn, Roger Fifield, your phone calls on 1-869-469-1616 or 1700. So I was telling you, Roger, so you think that is a good thing with the kids. So I'm walking through Island Hopper one day to the store, and somebody mentioned my name. So a lady is there standing up and she says, "Oh, that at the WEBBO?" So, you know me, I said, "Yeah, so what happened to him?" She said, "You look too much Anna. You, me try call in, and you're a talk about, you must say, 'Good morning, sir,' and 'good morning,' you know, thing and stuff like that. You look," and I smile, because that's how I deal with most things. And she said, you're only there smiling, and I said, "Enjoy your day." That was years ago. But you know why I smiled? You know what I was going to tell her? No wonder the child ain't none better. Can you hear how she accosted me? In trying to say to the kids what Roger is saying. So I'm just saying, Roger, it comes at a cost, because again, our people like to cuss. And she see me, so all she thinks she's gonna do to cuss me because I tell the child to say good morning, so whatever.
But you know, WEBBO.
No, I haven't stopped, you know.
Oh, sorry,
I still when I say I haven't stopped, as you know, when they call, they do that, because I just say, if you can't take the jam, don't come. If you can't play by the rules, don't call us. You know what I'm saying? Because you got to stand up for what you believe in. You go ahead, Roger.
Yes, and that is exactly what I'm saying when I said, you know, some of us, we do not want to change. We do not appreciate, you know, other persons, you know, trying to discipline and try to help mold our children, because what? Then are your father, then are your mother. You know, I mean, we have to get away from that. Even in the school system, WEBBO, you know, parents, you know, they want to come to the school and they want to bully the teachers. They want to make the teachers feel shame, you know, in front of the children, and then that same child have to sit in that particular teacher class. I mean, people have to be more realistic. WEBBO, when my first child went to primary school, Joycelyn Liburn Primary School back then, I think that at the time, in terms of you know, punishment, in terms of the strap, I think it was only the head teacher that could have done that. And I sat in the class the first day, and I said to the teacher like this. I said, "Look, you have my child for X number of hours in 5 days of the week. I am not there. I expect you, if my child is unruly, to discipline my child." And I said, "Look, I guarantee you that you do not have any issue with neither me or the child's mother, because we are not going to come up there to bully any teacher. We are not going to come up there to I said, if the child need licks, beat the child. That's what I told the teacher, and that's what I said to the teachers over the years. If they want licks, bang them, because that's how I feel. It is not that you are ill-treating the child. It's just a way. I mean, some people disagree, I know that, but it's a way that, of keeping the child in line, and, there are different ways of disciplining a child. Of course, I know that. But as I said, if it means beating the child, beat the child. I'm not going to come up there to fight you. And I have my last child is in sixth form, the first year of sixth form. And over the many years that they were going to, from preschool come up, I have never been to the school to bully any teacher. And at this stage, I don't think that I would have any reason to go there. WEBBO. I believe that we have to understand that the children, they are not in our immediate company for a number of hours, for 5 days a week, and we have to understand that. We have to understand that other persons, they're amongst other persons, and sometimes we believe that our children are saints.
So you're saying these things actually happen. When they happen, how are they resolved? Because I can't get it. You're saying that the teachers would go and bully the teachers and stuff like that.
No, the parents.
The parents, yeah. Sorry. So then, how would that be resolved?
Well, enough of these things I imagine would reach education, the department level, the Department of Education, that level, and I guess I suspect that they would call in the parents and the teacher and try to trash it out. However, I can't say it never really happened. Well, it has never happened. That I know of, to anybody close, to me. So to have a first-hand knowledge, so to speak. So I'm not sure, but I believe that is one of the things they would do. They would go to education to seek some sort of redress.
Well, I think school is a nice place. I really love school, and sometimes I really want to go back to school, to be honest. Even though I had, some difficulties when I was going to school because, of certain perception. Never been a rude person in school, but I think they tried to look into my mind and thought that they would prefer my mind to be of another sort, not questioning too much of things and the way things are, and just following through on what they think was the right kind of attitude and so forth. But I'm not sure what you have said is working in these days. This if they want beating to bang them, I think that's probably had its time back then. But in today's world, you can get yourself in serious trouble, because I was beaten in school by the Honorable Vance Armory. He gave me 2 with a tamon rod across my shoulder, actually, and I did forgive him, but I think it was a bit brutal back then, and I wouldn't want to see anyone do that to my kid, really. There are other ways to discipline a child, but apart from that all, listening to you, I start thinking about services and the way people deal with people during when they're providing service, because I find that is seriously lacking, and a lot of attitude and rudeness seems to come out in that respect, and I trying to put them together. If if kids are coming up with such discipline and etiquette, if they would find themselves bearing a service to the public and find themselves being, full of attitude and rude and so forth. I mean, I just last week I had to really get on bad with someone. I probably went over the edge because the service she was providing me over the counter was so disrespectful to me, and so I trying to join things up as to say, well, if you have a child which is not disciplined, doesn't want to be disciplined, if such individual would be the individual that would come up in providing really bad service and that kind of service with attitude as they grow up, as an extension to that young individual being a child or who doesn't seem to want to yield to good behavior, morals and good etiquette, But it's so difficult these days, really. School becomes a difficult place because the students will be students and children will be children, and they are all sorts, to be quite honest.
Okay, Naya, let me just take this. Good evening, thank you for holding.
Good evening.
Caller, you want to make hello. You want to turn your radio down, please?
It's down. You still hearing me?
Yeah, go ahead.
I really that you are running from the big elephant in the room, which is the foreign influence.
What do you mean? We're not running from it, The way we discuss things is everybody is encouraged to give their aspect of it. So if you got a different aspect, let's hear it. Hello? Well, I think the caller is still there. Hello? Okay, the caller might have left, but I don't. You're running from it, Naya?
No, me don't see no elephant. I mean, the foreign influence meaning what? Coming from where? Are we talking about foreigners here on island, or are we talking about what we are exposed to on the television and through the media, the internet, or whatever? Of course, that play a major role. Not the foreigners who are coming here. I'm talking about exposing ourselves to the various platforms that exist. And
one of the things I always say that in finding excuses for things, right, is that every generation had its innovations and improvements in things. And when we're talking about the kids have to deal with exposed to so many things and stuff like that, remember they're also brighter than us.
True.
So if you have certain things, that is what preparing is all about. And we have the people who are in charge of education and the teachers and stuff like that and so on. They're very, very bright. So they should have learned also how to deal with challenges that the earlier people who were not so bright did not know how to deal with. So as things evolve, you're supposed to evolve as well in solving the problems. But instead of that, all we do is say, well, it never used to be that way and stuff like that and so on. But you never had a PhD, head teacher, or etc., etc., etc. The long and the short of it is that we must rise to the challenges.
Well, maybe it's not that they don't know how to, but maybe it's the courage. Maybe they don't have the courage. Maybe they're afraid that somebody would meet them and abuse them and stuff like that, and they don't want to be abused and stuff like that.
You are the funeral today. You are here tonight. You heard me say when we started the show, We were persecuted and still are, but we're doing it for 30-something years. People tell me, when my staff tell me things difficult to see, but difficult don't mean impossible.
Exactly.
You have to, you got to challenge, you got to try and meet it, rise to it.
Not having the courage is not rising to it. You must.
In other words, if you admit that you can't do the job, why are you still there? Where you take it? I said to people sometimes, there's certain things that I don't think I want to do. Get into because I don't want to do certain things. However, if you get into it and you understand what is necessary to be done to succeed, you got to do it. No?
Exactly.
Yes.
I totally agree.
The job of a teacher is difficult. I'm wondering if it's been made more difficult in these days than before. I suppose because everybody have rights.
Depends on what you call difficult. I'll say this because this lady, she would like me to say it, and she called in the radio and said, you know, all I used to teach.
Yes.
And this lady was going to, in school at the time. I believe I probably was a farm teacher. And she will tell the story that she was real disgusting. And the head teacher at the time, Mrs. Andre, she was going to expel her from school. And I went to Mrs. Andre. This is her account. And I said to her, Mrs. Andre, I'm going to work with her. I don't work with her. And I work with her. And she go up and down and she thanked me so much. So you always had people, for whatever reason, on the fringes.
Yeah, you will.
Right? But work with them. You're not going to get all, but yeah, Roger.
Yeah, but sometimes too, especially in the school setting, and even outside of the school setting, sometimes we have these children that we call troublesome and rebellious. And one of the things we have to find out, we have to do some investigation and find out, why is this particular child, being rebellious, and if this particular child being rebellious, how can, I get to that child in terms of getting that child turned around, WEBBO?
Yeah, but Roger, here's the thing. You were mentioning about back then. Back then we had the troublesome person, you're talking about these days. But back then we didn't have no guidance counselors.
That is true.
But we have a ton of them now. Who were and that's the point I'm making. Yeah. We have people who are very bright, who are trained to be dealing with these things and so on. So as we advance, we put the certain things in place to deal with them. No?
Psychologists and all that.
Yeah.
It's very important.
I don't know if you could just permit me just to share this. And this, I think, would kind of help to bring out the point that I wanted to make in terms of how we get around to those rebellious persons. Where I work at the Customs and Excise Department. And some years ago, a particular individual was traveling, and the individual had to complete the customs declaration form, and I wasn't the officer that was dealing with the individual. And from the office I heard a commotion, and when I looked through the glass I recognized who the individual was. And at the time the officer was my senior, and I knew the individual. So I went to the officer and I asked the officer, mind you, the officer was my senior, and I said to the officer, can you kindly allow me to deal with this particular passenger? And the officer said yes. So I said to the passenger, come, give me your passport. And I took the passport and I asked, the questions that I had to ask. And I did that because, as I said, I knew the person. I knew that the person, how should I put this, can't, what I guess most people would say, read. And so the person was putting up a barrier, making tons of noise and, saying that, they're not paying, they're not fulling out the farm because the Nevis the from and stuff like that, So what I'm trying to say, the person now being rebellious, so to speak, because of a certain reason. So once you know the reason, you'll be better able to deal with that particular situation and bring it back to the school system now. I am saying sometimes it's a simple love, or maybe, in that particular home where the student comes from, maybe, that particular student, feel as if at home that he or she isn't loved, and, maybe the parents prefer a particular sibling over that particular one. So when they come to school, they kind of act out and stuff like that. So sometimes we have to go beyond and try to find out exactly what is happening for us, to be able to solve the problem. So that is what I really wanted to bring out in terms of the investigating, to see what the problem is with the child.
So you don't think that we're outfitted with these things?
Of course we are, but then again, if we are and we can't surpass that hurdle, then we have to ask ourselves, some serious questions.
But then the other question I would ask, which is a serious one, because you say we have to ask serious questions, do we have hurdles?
But of course, I would say that we do have hurdles in our various systems and in society.
The reason why I ask it, is because depending on what forum you're in, we don't have any hurdles or issues.
And I mean, at all times, I believe that
I think it might be best described as challenges than probably hurdles. In the scenario you just brought forward, and in dealing with students, because those very students represent the extremities of society.
Now, let me get this. Good evening. Thank you for holding.
Good evening, Webber. Let me turn on the radio. Good evening to all of your panelists.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I found the discussion very interesting. You actually have all of these people trained, but they're trained in a different culture. It is more difficult to apply it in a different culture. Because I don't study in the U.S. or whatever, where all of these things, they operate in a different scene. Now, I taught school for years, from kindergarten to university. And I taught primary school for years too. And when I went to the high school, Bassi High School, all the was anything, but I did child psychology when I went to Teachers College, 72, 73. And that changed my whole mindset, Well, when you're in a high school, the children feel they have to answer. Some of them, Sometimes when they carry on and say, I want to see you during break time. So I said, well, why are you going to let that with me? He said, yeah, is my mother doing me this, and you understand what I'm saying? So if you don't do that, then you end up in a row with a child. Or they didn't do. What happened to you at the homework? This is only what I'm trying to do, you know, but I can't get a piece and nothing. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes. Can I ask you a question?
Yes, you may.
So you don't think, with the advances that we have and the brilliant young minds and not so young minds that we have, should be able to figure out what you just said as well?
Some of them will tell you the truth. Now, if you were raised in a certain environment where you are not familiar, because some of those grew up in what we call middle class homes, upper class homes, and they have never been in close association with children of a different economic group. I mean, you gotta face it, eh? They don't know how to respond. They don't know how to respond. Or them they are bad and them they are from Irish town. You know, they label the children. And the children, they don't know how to react. I said, I want to see you in break time. You know what I mean? And the child will confess, me say, you know. But so and so and so and so. Some of them used to come off with the buses. They come off the country, you know. Bus leave early, they come and they town. Me say, you know, when go look for so and so, you know. Or they ain't get nothing to eat. You understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But what we have a lot of people doing psychology. Well, they learn the book thing. They learn the text. But I think they need to practice in their own country before they graduate. You don't think so?
I don't know.
Some of them demand.
Yeah, I got you, right? But here's the thing. I think that when you are of a certain level of maturity and education level, and you can analyze. Now, we were talking earlier about Edric W. Stanley, and he spoke about going to St. Croix, not having any formal training, but worked in a hotel, and was loved by the guests and everybody and stuff like that, simply because he had manners and stuff. He had manners and stuff like that, and so he told himself to treat these people nice and so on. And so what I'm saying is, when you're at a certain level of education, I don't think you have too much to do with how much books you read. It is your mind.
Empathy. I'm telling you, I have been in situations, and the way they're talking, they tell you about it, and they are very low. Some of them have very low expectation of children from a certain area. So they don't really reach out with the intention of helping them. More like trying to correct them. Because teaching in high school isn't easy, you know. Especially the girls. I used to say I prefer to teach boys. They're fussy, they make big fuss. They want, you know, and I would even take cases in the class. I said, how do you think I should have dealt with that? And we tried the case in the class. You know, I'm not sure wrong, you know, but give her a chance. You understand what I'm talking about? If you're not willing to go that route, there can always be conflict.
So you're saying, from your experience, that's just how girls are?
Huh?
You're saying from your experience, that's just how girls are?
All the girls are more aggressive, you know, in high school.
And complain for everything?
Huh?
And they complain for everything?
Not complain for everything, but they're very aggressive.
Okay. What do you mean by aggressive?
Towards each other.
Oh, okay.
You know? And they will try, even when you see them fighting at the teacher, it's usually the students, the female who fight the male teachers, you know? Or they rude to the other teachers. Because they're trying to prove something, but sometimes they're looking for affirmation.
Oh.
Because they get none where they come from. And you try, you know? It's not easy, but you have to keep at it. I have had grandchildren. Sometimes I wonder where these come from. You know what I mean? But you are forced to apply. I don't know. Maybe well, you find, let me reverse. When you have older females as guidance counselor, the response is better and the success is greater. You know Zita Bowie?
Yes.
Right. I think she was the first guidance counselor that was sent to Bassey High School. She used to teach maths, and then they put us here to do guidance counseling. And I sometimes will go with her. The child don't come to school. She goes out and she look for the child. Look for the grandmother, whatever, find out what is the problem. You know, but when you have the younger ones, because sometimes they come straight out of sixth form, straight out of university, and they're asked to deal with children who are older than them, who are taller than them, bigger than them, so that they that less level of respect. So I believe sometimes with the guidance counseling, you need more mature people. I don't know what you think about that.
But the question I would ask you then, when you give the more mature people the job, how you respond?
But they work along with them. Work along with them.
Work with me. How you would respond when the young people said they need to go home and give the young people in them the opportunity?
Well, I'm not talking about retirees, you know.
No, but
people maybe in the 40s and in the 50s.
Yeah,
I'm not talking about old people like me and some.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, when you have the people in the 20s and 30s now come from university with this PhD and stuff like that, how are you going to tell them must let the older person do it? You see what I'm saying?
Tell them what?
How are you going to tell them to let the older person do it?
It can be done.
Mm-hmm.
All right, they have more than one guidance counselor in the high schools. Let us say a child is having difficulties, and the child is sent to the guidance counsel office. That child can be dealt with by two persons. Because sometimes the young guidance counselor needs a little guidance counseling herself, because they see you operating outside of the school environment. And therefore they may have less respect for them. You don't think so?
Yeah, the theory is good, but I'm not so sure how
they got to try the theory, you know. Another thing again, I always say, I would prefer if our guidance counselors were trained in the Caribbean. And I mean it, you know. A lot of what they just say, the pure American psychology.
Well, don't you train guidance counselors as well?
Huh?
Don't you train guidance counselors as well?
They do, you know.
Okay,
they even have separate courses for guidance counselors.
Right, and that's in the Caribbean.
That's the Caribbean.
Right.
Jamaica, Barbados, and I went to Jamaica.
Right. So, so you were saying that, you know, you prefer that they be trained in the Caribbean. So I'm saying that maybe we have some who do.
We have some who have been there?
Who have been trained at UWI and stuff like that in the Caribbean.
They're not better than the American trained ones?
I don't know, but...
That's a question you're asking.
I don't know. You
could ask somebody who is involved, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Because most of them, they come back with them, oh, the child this and the child got all the rights, and it's not even our culture. It's not even our culture. And so they instruct the child, oh, they're going to pass the contraceptive to the child, and the mother can't do not, you know what I mean?
You will agree that leadership is not easy, right?
It was never meant to be easy, otherwise you wouldn't be at the top.
Okay.
It was never meant to be easy, you know. So I was expected to be easy. When you're at the top, which means that other people will be trying to get into your position, and the problems, people expect you at the top to solve them, even when they could do it themselves. So I don't know. All I could do is, but I keep saying, I say, look, you need older people to go with some of these teenagers. They need somebody who understands Not to come with all their from the ghetto, so they this and that. You know? I don't know. Maybe I am too old, but I am seriously thinking about it. They need more mature people. Even the young, if they have a family, so if they have children. Because if you don't have children, it is sometimes very difficult to even understand why children do what they do. No matter what books you have. Ask Mr. Brand.
Well, we'll have to ask him another time. This is not in tonight.
What you say now, yeah?
No, I said that we'll have to ask Mr. Brand another night. He's not in tonight.
All right. Well, who was talking about? You have Naya.
Naya and Fifield.
There's Naya then.
Yeah.
But I mean, seriously, if you don't have children, sometimes you can't appreciate or understand the things they say, the things they do, and why they do it. Sometimes you don't even see any reason. I'm going to just try our best, you know, and talk to them, because some of them really, really, really need help, you know. They will talk to you when you're an older person, and they hope you understand. But when they say the young teacher, they come out of sixth form, the students taller than them, bigger than them, it's pure trouble. No matter how good they could teach. The children respect them less because they feel like they're just playmates, you know. But we got to keep at it. And as I say, at home the parents must have some values too. Because you're the one type of, you is the WEBBO? Now, when you hear that, you feel sorry for the child. You don't even vex the woman. You're sorry for the child, you know. Because she has nobody to teach her. So even if the child calling the next time, I bet you she will say what you wanted to say. All right then.
Yeah, okay, thanks much. Yes, Naya.
I'm here sitting and thinking, but morality is we speak of international morality as something that's common throughout the world, and maybe the challenge is with the socioeconomic makeup of the societies, and as the caller just elucidate upon the fact that we got in America, it could be a bit different, and their approach. Maybe these graduates come from a part of society that they cannot relate to those who come from the other class of society. But in that respect, I would say, well, they are not well trained then, because they're obviously not trained to deal with simply, say, the higher classes of society. They are trained to deal with society as a whole. And so the socioeconomic makeup of society sometimes poses a challenge to those who are not well trained, because, I mean, you come out of UWI. I mean, this is the Caribbean, so we expect you to know the history and the knowledge and the makeup of the societies in the Caribbean. And so we expect you to have that knowledge that you can apply to the various classes in society. I could understand when the caller speak to culture, because of course coming out of America, it could be different. And yes, you may be book trained, but sometimes the little English that we speak, the way we can communicate in such ways, can really, turn down a burning fire that exists in an individual, really. And your approach, sometimes your approach is probably too book orientated, and maybe it should be more culturally orientated and
culturally trained.
Culturally trained. Well, you should be aware.
See, what I want to, you make an interesting point there, Naya. An emphasis on the book trained. I'm trained.
Yeah.
And why I say it's interesting and important is because in the government system now, my understanding is, maybe I got it wrong, that whereas if you worked in a department for a number of years, understand how it works and everything, so you have that on-the-job training, right? You will no longer be promoted based on that on-the-job training. You have to give way to the person who is book trained.
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's not correct, Roger.
But that's what's happening.
No, but that's what I heard, and that's why I said maybe I got it wrong.
Yeah.
Roger is in the system, so I yield to him. Roger.
No, that's not entirely so, Mr. Herbert.
Yeah, but so tell us what it is.
It is.
In certain in certain cases, well, I believe that the government, looking and encouraging persons.
Oh, you come. Okay, no problem. Go ahead.
To elevate themselves and to get access to higher learning, getting the degrees, the PhDs.
So what I said wasn't correct.
But what I'm saying, it's not entirely like that. Throughout the system, you would still find persons who do not have a degree, that they still have hold certain positions. So throughout the system is not entirely like that.
They hold the position, but I'm talking about going forward. You're basically negating what I said, but you're not providing the evidence. You right, Naya?
Yes.
And around here you don't work like that, Roger. You got to back up. Yeah, you got to back. So if you're
the
saying
one with the degree will pass you straight and go along ahead of you, because you don't get no promotion because you doesn't have the degree, even though you're well trained, well knowledgeable of the position you hold.
And if it fits into what the caller was saying as well, I think the caller was making sort of the same point. So we're at a conflict here. On the one hand, we are arguing that we want these papers and this stuff, right? And then you said to the person who understand, you could even say the culture, know the job, have the practical experience, and you said to them, you are not needed, and then you complain that you have all these problems. When the person who actually can do it, you said you don't want them. Why? Because you want to sound and look a certain way? Roger, I'm still waiting to hear from you, because you said that I have it wrong. You're gonna yield, you're gonna pull back? Because unless you can bring the evidence.
It does happen.
It doesn't happen.
It does happen. And I think in dealing with what we were talking about, kids and schools and the challenges, that we are experiencing, and Roger made the point about, and the caller as well, experiences in the home sometimes play out in the school. And not just experiences in the home, experiences on the block, in your social connectivity and connections. Sometimes plays out in the school, and if you cannot approach those children with in a manner that communication will become easier, then you simply don't get in the way. And sometimes you're fresh out of university and so forth, well knowledgeable from the book. You just doesn't have those experiences, and you're not culturally groomed to establish or to open communication with these individuals, these children. I think I think that's a fact. And so But as I made the point before, morality is the same all over, and a person who is well trained and well equipped to deal with the challenges should be one that can apply him or herself to dealing with people from the various socio-economic background.
That's to put it in our own context. That's like doing talk, and then they start to get results. So you're gonna have somebody who have a PhD and all sort of thing and stuff like that in welding. And every time the welding thing you break, I say, let me go and buy another body.
Yes, sir.
Another welding thing. And from that, I don't have no problem. But I want to be able to say that the man who welds this thing has a welding degree.
Yes, he come out of this and that college.
Right. So that's some of the realities
we're dealing with.
Yeah, we got to face. And you know, that is why it is sometimes good to debate, right? Because again, like you said, that sometimes you might be arguing a point, and then the reality is what's the result? That's just talk. But who does talk that get result?
On radio.
That's just a light moment. Okay, what else we got?
WEBBO, I think I heard on the news today, I think it's making the rounds that, you know, President Biden, you know, has, what's the term?
Pardon
his son unconditionally. And I think that what is happening is that, you know, he would have said before that he basically would not, and now it's coming basically to pack up and leave next month. You know, he has done that, and what has also been said is that that would have been in the works for some months now, although he would have been saying that, you know, unlike you know, Trump would have been saying all the time that those persons who would have done whatever they did back on that January month, you know, he would pardon him. So I believe that is one of the things that making rounds, and persons are saying, you know, well, if, you know, he were to put up himself, you know, to run. Maybe I'm even saying it wrongly. To run again, if he run again before this last election, I'm speaking. You know, I guess people questioning his integrity. You know, so I think that's something. I don't know if any of you.
Well, of interest, yes, but you know, I kind of like Trump, right? But I've been thinking if Biden's son was Trump's son, he probably wouldn't have even gone to court. He might have fired anybody who tried to put his son, you know, through that experience. But
I find the whole thing very interesting. Let me take this. Good evening. Thank you for holding.
Yes, it's me again. I'm going to be short. Now, I guess you're going to drop all the charges against Trump. Right?
Yes.
yeah.
How is that different from what Biden did? That could have been one of the things that prompted him, you know? If Trump got away with all that he was convicted and charged with, what is the difference between him and Biden's son? That could have been the decisive factor. But politicians always say one thing and mean something else, eh? So what do you think about that?
Yeah, well, there's more than one standard.
You know what I mean?
There's more than one standard.
More than one standard.
I'm going to hang up.
Yeah.
Well, I think both of them share something in common. One, if he wasn't Biden's son, would he have gone through that, and two, if Trump wasn't Trump, former president and trying to be president again, would he have gone through that, really?
What effect, Naya, you think it will have on the rest of the population? Because if everybody now sees that at the head, at the top, this is the games that they're playing, nobody can do anything wrong. But then down below, you get the penalty. What effect you think it will have? I mean, how will people now begin to look at it? Because when the people at the top are getting away with all these things, and then you do one little thing and then the slammer, you think it will have an effect?
It would have an effect, yes, because that's create the kind of society we live in, which is nobody speak good of the society we live in, and it's because we see justice tend to have its way, a two-tier justice system, politicized justice system, oligarchy justice system, or a system that serves those who are on top, it looks like. And so you can never have that kind of balance, and people are realizing that, and that produces not so good people and not so good societies at all.
Yeah, when we were growing up, we always used to hear justice delayed is justice denied.
Yeah.
And I wonder, again, you find a lot of brilliant folks, if they're not understanding, like, for instance, in Jamaica, you have a lot of vigilante justice there.
Yeah.
And it's spread in. And I wonder if they're so brilliant they don't realize that the justice system is basically falling apart.
It's crumbling.
Yeah.
I mean, America represents the biggest democracy, but it looks like the Supreme Court is politicized. It's the highest court in the land.
And I am a little suspicious about that ruling with the British American thing. Remember, you and I had said if we had sent it by the, we probably might have feel more comfortable, because when you see the governments and so on with certain things and certain people, those things you gotta pay attention to, because the world wasn't built in a day. And some of the upheavals that we see is because of certain things that was done earlier.
WEBBO, I had a conversation with a lady in town today, and about the same Hunter Biden pardoning, and I asked the lady, if we are saying that he shouldn't be punished, and the lady was adamant, by saying, not to go to jail, but he can be punished some other way. And she was really adamant, so I suspect that she was saying that maybe he could be charged but not go to jail. And I think that she was speaking, it came up that she was speaking more of a mother, a motherly love, so to speak, from her perspective, that is, because she was saying, I would not send my son to jail if if my son is to be punished, let him be punished by some other way, by paying monies, some fine or something like that. So, I guess, different people have different views about it.
Yeah, but we just got a lesson about ladies from the caller earlier. She said that's how ladies behave. Didn't she say that, Naya?
Yes.
I listen acutely, because one thing I'm interested in is learning about people and wonder why people do and say and behave certain place. Based on what you're saying, the lady told you that.
But it can be easily said that most people would have granted him the pardon. Well, most people would have. Don't you think so?
I feel so. I feel so. But the question, I believe we go back to, the integrity. This thing would have been in motion for months now. And he, as president, to the media saying that he would not. I believe that is the crux of the matter, and not necessarily that he actually passed.
That's when he had planned to run. That's when you had planned to run again for president.
but also
Maybe
but
make a difference then.
also Trump boasted that what they didn't do in 50 years, he did in a year too. He overturned Roe versus Wade. And then when Trump realized that it's backfiring, he said, well, I'm your protector whether you like it or not. So I'll take care of you. And those people who are Christians and so never move away from him.
Well, yeah. But Trump...
So we're accepting then that Trump is a different kettle of fish.
Look, Trump, to me, from the American public, based on the support he had during the election, he seems to me the most Christian person from their point of view.
Yeah,
you know.
But the goes far said that he is the second coming of Jesus, you know. and look, like
even though he had all this conviction and everything,
exactly.
He seems to be the one who represent the Christian faith during the election for some reason or the other.
I think that he's the one who know what to say and when to say.
But the world was not built in a day. Let's remember that. The world was not built in a day. So who has the last word?
Well, WEBBO, yes, again, would like to make an appeal again. Once again, I did it at the top of the program to make appeal to all those who are interested and maybe not so much interested, but to come out to the bottom of Zion by the bus stop and to give a helping hand. We would have started, erecting the Christmas theme park, and we know what it's like when it is lit. People from all over, people from St. Kitts, and further afield come and, to view it. So we're asking persons to come out and assist. It's a lot of work. So we would really appreciate your assistance.
That's the last word. This program repeats at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning following the VON News Minute. Join the Honorable Mark Bradley tomorrow evening at 8 o'clock for On the Mark. Join Keith Scarborough on Thursday evening at 8 o'clock for Government at Work. A place to spend all of your evenings right here in the Eastern Caribbean's powerhouse. Thank you all again for joining us. This is your voice in the community. Thought that get results. You all have a wonderful evening.
Views and opinions expressed on the preceding program were solely those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Nevis Broadcasting Company Limited or its advertisers.
Christmas radio, Christmas radio. It's a radio, Christmas.
This